Welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Today, I have a poli-sci major from the Florida State University who has become a successful entrepreneur. He is not only a top producing real estate agent, but he's now diversifying himself in investing in a franchise of coffee shops. We're going to talk about that, as well as a property investor, if I saw that correctly on your bio. Today, we will learn more about what this young man's doing, a highly motivated agent, see what makes him tick. Let's welcome Jordan Hooten of Compass Realty to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm really excited about the conversation because I think when I was just doing some background, of course, we had a little chat a couple weeks ago when we were trying to get you on before you got sick. You look much better, sound much better today, I should say.
I don't have my voice all the way back, but
Yeah.
I'm feeling better.
Okay, great. But I think not enough real estate agents talking about the just buying real estate, investing in real estate. That experience of being a landlord or that kind of thing, I think opens up a whole nother experience. As you've been in the business for a little bit now, to understand every experience, every transaction is another notch on your belt. Is another story you can tell to the next client who has questions, and you can revert back to your experience, right?
Definitely. I think it sort of opened up my client base a little bit larger too when I started investing in my own properties, just because there's a lot of realtors out there that are like, hey, I can be your realtor, I can put a sign in your yard, I can unlock a door for you. So when you're like, hey, I just bought another Airbnb, people are like, well, maybe we should talk to that guy. Like he seems to be at another level of like his experience or interest.
Well, and I think investment, I know just being from on the lending side, I mean, the questions that come from realtors about, investment loans, especially if you're trying to buy a condo as an investment, and then obviously Airbnb, where can you buy Airbnbs? Because they're, the laws, the governance are changing on those in certain areas, especially like in downtown St. Augustine and St. Augustine Beach. They've gotten really restrictive. You need to know an agent that kind of has a feeling what's going on.
Yeah, there's different rules in all the municipalities. I typically stay in Jacksonville. As far as my sweet spot areas, I'm going to save that for myself and my clients.
All right, but let's kick it off. Where are you from?
I'm from Jacksonville. I grew up over in Mandarin until I was about 8 or 9, and then I actually moved about 1 mile from your office and grew up the rest of the way over here until I graduated from Bartram Trail.
Okay.
So
cool.
Yeah, driving over here was very nostalgic. I've got a lot of memories on this road.
Yeah.
Mostly as an idiot, growing as an idiot teenager doing dumb stuff over here.
It just reminds me, I was talking to someone the other day, of course, been in the area, and obviously, I had Cole Slade on episode 100, talking about 210 being a dirt road and so forth, and as it's grown, and then Bartram popping up there to really, as the county just has started to pick up, and now obviously St. John's, exploding. So that's kind of exciting there.
Well, I don't remember it as a dirt road, but that's because Cole's a little bit older than me.
Poli-sci, what you go to Florida State? Was that your primary choice of schooling, or did you fall back to that? And then why? What poli-sci? What did you see yourself doing?
Florida State was my primary choice of places to live and enjoy my college years, more so than it was my primary choice of schooling. Poli-sci was one of the easier majors to get into.
Right.
I really had no idea what I wanted to do, man. So I had heard that was like a it kind of fit some of my strengths, like, knowing how to get up and give a presentation or write a paper were things that I was always good at. So it just kind of made sense. And then, when I was in college, I was able to get some cool internships in government, and I worked for the Senate.
Cool.
I worked at a political consulting firm for a little bit. So it was whatever.
Yeah.
I learned that it wasn't what I wanted to be doing.
Which I think a lot of they, what is it, like 60% of the kids that enter, actually graduate college nationally. Every school's a little different what their retention rates are. But, of those 60% that graduate, I guarantee you 75% of them are not going into the major that they actually got, or like you said, they go to their first job and they're like, yeah, this ain't You know, I was an education major. I quickly found out that I'm old school, you know, and I've mentioned it on the show before. When I grew up, if you were in someone's face, it's because you cared about them. Now it's they think you're, you know, demeaning. So I'm not I don't function in that today's world.
Yeah,
in the school.
I hear you.
Yeah, if I raised my voice, they'd be like, "Oh my God," you know.
Well, it seems like you're doing what you want to do.
I do enjoy this. I got to learn how to turn this into. If I could turn my voice in the show into dollars, that would be, you know, heaven, right there.
Keep
but
watching. Do you watch any or listen to any Joe Rogan?
I do pop around Joe Rogan, mostly on his reels. Occasionally, if there's someone on there that I, you know, like Jordan Peterson, he had on a while back, just to think of somebody that I'm like, oh, let me go and, you know, I watch a good bit of his. His shows can be considerably long.
They're great for a nice road trip.
Yes, or, you know, obviously if you're interested in the guest, you know, then you're obviously engaged.
Yeah, he's got a lot of silly like comedy guys on there. I don't really prefer those. Like I like to listen to it, you know, when he has like an astrophysicist on there, like a Elon Musk or
right.
And I'm really into the UFO stuff. So anytime he's talking about like extraterrestrial.
Not to change the subject for the UFOs because that's a whole.
I know this is about real estate. I'm just asking about you a little bit, man.
Although if we were out near Area 51 and we said the UFO landed on our real estate, it would make it more valuable.
Oh, definitely.
We're going to lead up to real estate. You had some careers, you said, before you actually, but you did work part-time. If I read your bio correctly in LinkedIn, you kind of got your real estate license earlier to kind of tinker in it. Yeah. What kind of like made you just go get it, but not really was committed to that was going to be your career? What were you just initially thinking or listening to people investing in property and just figured, let me go get my license? What was your...
My mom's been an agent for a long time.
Oh,
and
good.
She just kind of told me, hey, like, get it, and then I can, like, pay you to refer me business, because I really, at the time, had no interest in actually being a real estate agent, and I think I just kind of sent a couple people to her and said, hey, so-and-so, like, wants to buy a house, and she's like, you know, I can pay you for this if you can.
Right.
You know, and she was kind of trying to push me in that direction, but I didn't want to go in her direction or in my dad's direction, really, because, you know, my dad's a chief on the fire department in Jacksonville, and you know, I really didn't want to do what either one of them were doing. You know, I wanted to like
cut your own road,
do my own thing.
Yeah.
So,
you had on there, it was in a sports tech group that worked with the PGA. You mentioned some things when we were talking about the poli-sci major. So, tell us about what you've taken from some of those previous careers, and now. You know, obviously you were a little older. You graduated, and some years gone by. You worked some other places, but you must have taken some things, whether you got formal training on or just life experience from those things, and took it into real estate today.
Yeah, you know, sometimes I look back and I'm kind of like, man, like, you know, the way that your business has grown over the last 5 years in real estate, you should have just maybe started doing that when you were like 20 years old.
Right.
But when I really look at it, like. It's like I met so many people in college, and you know that I do business with now. You know, a lot of people from Florida State move here, or you know, friends of friends and different things like that. So I think it brought me a really good network, and I think you grow a lot when you leave the city of Jacksonville for 4 or 5 years versus just sticking around. So I think that was really good for my personal growth for sure. And I mean, my first job at you know, sports media technology after college kicked my ass, man. I mean, it was you know, the way that they were structured, where it's just, you know, meetings and Word documents and PowerPoints and this and that, and you just had to live by the calendar, and just
so very structured environment.
Yeah, I mean, I got to go to a lot of awesome, you know, PGA tournaments and things like that, but I mean, it really wasn't for me. But I think getting your ass kicked is good sometimes. So I think it was a good learning experience for me.
So think about that structure. I guess it sounds like a high demand. You know, you're talking about pressure, creating presentations and so forth.
Well, and even more so. I mean, we were out on site running these events, like running all the technology and cameras for these events. So everything's high stress, high anxiety, emergency.
Because the problem goes down, you
It's
got
the
to.
middle of the turn. Yeah, you got to figure it out immediately. So yeah, it was stressful.
Yeah. So you going from that to, as you know, we joke a lot, especially when having broker team leaders on, you know, obviously they're interviewing agents, trying to recruit people and that kind of thing. And I'm sure you get, as a young person, you get a lot of your peer group ask you, hey, what's, you know, is real estate something I should get into? Or are they, you know, they're interested in real estate and they're asking you, but that structure that you had there in corporate America, although, you know, I guess it was kind of fun. You were traveling around a little bit. You get a little fun there too, but from that standpoint. But the structure in the high demand, and then jumping in, you know, moving into real estate where there's no boss calling you at 9 o'clock because you didn't show up to the sales meeting. Yeah. You know what I mean? How did you take that and leverage it as you went into real estate to structure your day? I would imagine there was a growth period where like, well, I don't have someone telling me, I got to actually tell myself.
Yeah, there was definitely a year where it didn't go well. You know what I mean? There was a year where I had to remind myself that I couldn't go to the beach and I needed to, you know, wake up and work. But I'm still continuing to grow different strategies on how to, you know, time management, whether it's time boxing or, you know, writing out, you know, I'm always like constantly reworking my calendar all the time. Mm-hmm. So like every 30 minutes of my day is pretty much planned, but I'll just kind of move things around and like I'll knock something off and know, oh, okay, hey, it's going to be better to move that to the next day. But I'm sort of obsessive with the Google Calendar. But it definitely took a while to get there. When
did you, just as you're onto the calendar, and I know a lot of the top agents, obviously, and I know not everyone does it. Everyone does it their way, right? That's kind of the beauty of it. You're self-employed. You can make that calendar whatever way you want to make that calendar. Right. Use it or not use it. That's your choice. But a lot of them are into the time blocking. Is it something that all of a sudden, you know, after that year of like, hey, I need to actually, you know, put some grind time in. Yeah. You know, do that. A mentor said, hey, you need to get yourself on a schedule, or your mom, or was it just simply yourself just going, I know better?
I follow a lot of like entrepreneurial success pages, things like that. Mm-hmm. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, inspired by a lot of different people. And, you know, honestly, one of the best things, because I'm just like as guilty as everyone else in 2023 that's got a 30-second attention span, but I recommend following as many like entrepreneur, wealth, success pages as possible on Instagram, because they're great about putting together little 30-second tips, 30-second 1-minute reels. And when that's all you're following, it's like I don't open up my Instagram and see like a bunch of chicks or like a bunch of useless information. I open it up, like, and when I've, you know, first opened my Instagram in the morning.
He didn't mean chicks were useless, but...
No. But I open my stuff in the morning, and I'm just fed motivational information as I'm looking through that.
Right.
So it's kind of like, you know, you see people, like, delete the apps, put the phone down and stuff, and it's like, good luck with that. Yeah. But, like, if I click Instagram, I'm learning on there all the time.
No, Hunter, that's actually great advice. I mean, obviously, I thought you were going to say, like, you know, listen to podcasts, which obviously you can do well. There's
I do
a lot
that
of
too,
them. Yeah.
Which is obviously really easy to do as a real estate.
Well, while you're driving, because you can't be flipping, but you can be listening.
Picking up on the audiobook game in the real estate industry is huge. So instead of driving around listening to music, I'm like constantly driving around like learning something. Right. You know, because then that's like self-growth in between work, which is kind of goes back
I'm just gonna trying to keep you centered on here.
Sorry.
That's all right. You're good right there. You're good right there. Perfect. All right. That's brilliant. That is.
Should I go? I just shifted.
No. I got you. You're good. Yeah. If you sit up straight in the chair, you're good.
All right.
No, that's one I haven't heard from anyone. Not that anyone else is not doing it, but that's actually brilliant. If you do like the reels and the Instagram, to get on those motivational or, you know, whatever it is that, whether it's other real estate podcasts that are out there or business people, I mean, that's a great idea. Let Instagram pick it up and start feeding some people you probably never even heard before in business.
And then you get suggested new ones from that. I mean, like it's Instagram. they're really smart about feeding you more of what you want, and then so.
Yeah, no, that's wow, that's actually brilliant. So, what happens in your life? Your sports. I mean, I imagine traveling around as a young guy, traveling around the different golf tournaments. If they're high stress, there's probably some behind the scenes good times.
Too.
Yeah, some downtime, good times. But where does it come for Jordan that it's like, hey, I want to enter into real estate full time? What happens that creates that?
I think I've sort of always had like an entrepreneurial mindset, and I've always sort of been good with numbers too. So I'm always sort of looking for the next thing. And, I was doing like our revenue projections for the company and things like that. And I'm just sort of looking at the number of golf tournaments, whose accounts those are, potential new business. And I'm just like, look, I could report here 3.5 hours early every day, and I'm not seeing six figures in the next 5 years.
Right.
And when I realized that, I was like, I got to start picking up real estate on the side and doing something different.
Now, were you investing in any real estate at the time personally?
No,
not
I was
yet.
Just doing it on the side a little bit, and then, long story short to that, because it's really not a major part of my life, but long story short to that is like within like over 4 months, I was like, I made my salary for the year already for my 60-hour a week job, doing this for like 10 hours a week on the side.
Right.
I need to quit.
Right.
It's time to quit.
Right. Some people believe you need to jump in completely. I think your situation, obviously, with mom being there, and so you had someone to answer your questions. But if you look at new agents, because one of the things I like, I think hopefully is a benefit for the show. I mean, many agents see it as a value. Is someone's thinking about getting in the business, could be listening to us. Someone who might be in the business and, is just kind of lost right now, looking for that right brokerage, right mentor, or whatever it is that can help them, move to the next level. But in your case, it was rare because mom was there and you're doing it part-time. So you can always ask mom questions. When you look at agents trying to get in the business today, knowing what you know now, and they don't have that, mom, aunt, whatever in the business already, working part-time versus, they need to go full-time. What is kind of your opinion on that if one of your friends came to you and said they wanted to work part-time?
Well, first and foremost, I guess I would back up a little bit and just say, the first mentor I probably ever had was Sean O'Neill. I don't know if you know him.
I've been trying to get Sean on the show. We will put him in the search mechanism, so hopefully he pops up on there. I've been trying to get him on. Yeah.
So mom is a wild card to say the least. So I wouldn't say I really learned very.
Your mom
much
may
there.
be listening to this.
That's okay. She was a wild card and does her own thing. So I really would say that really Sean helped me along, and going over to JPAR from exit was probably one of the better decisions that I ever made, because I really just saw my career start to immediately took off when I not to say anything bad about exit.
Was that
it
when
really
you
helped
were,
me when I moved on to JPAR for sure.
Does Sean start when you committed to a full time? Was he working with you when you were part time?
I was only part time for like a few months.
I
went full time.
Okay, because I saw on your bio, it looked like you had gotten your license fairly early, you were mentioning.
Well, I had got it simply to pass referrals, because when I got it when I was like 22.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, a few $1,000 here and there is like great, and like that was it. So, and then there was just sort of a 3-year, 4-year break there where I didn't practice at all and just like maintained it. And then I was working for SMT, started doing it again, and then pretty quickly.
So actually started trying to raise your own business.
Pretty quickly got out of it as a side hustle.
Right,
full time.
Right. I'm trying to remember what the actual original question was there.
Something about.
So if your friend of yours comes to you today, who is, got that full-time job, they're used to that salary. What kind of advice do you, because I imagine this has got to happen to you regularly. What kind of advice do you give them about going part-time versus just going all in?
I don't know. That's a tough question for me, because I don't want any more realtors to join real estate at all. So we got enough. Get out. It's a terrible. We hate it. I hate it.
Right.
I hate doing it. Don't do it. Keep your job. That's the advice I give them.
All right, we'll move on to the next question. That should be a between the ferns question, I guess.
Keep your 9-to-5s.
All right.
Stay away.
You were at Exit originally, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't actually, for some reason, I didn't put it on there. But one of the things I always like to drill a little bit is I think for most agents, I'm always going to leave. There's some agents that, you know, whether they're maturity or whatever business, they just get it. They come in, maybe their mom did it. It's just that they just totally get it, and they can operate on their own. And it really doesn't matter what brokerage they're working for. They don't really have a need for the situation. But then majority of them, they need a Keller Williams or a Watson Realty who's got, you know, great for green agents coming in, training them up or putting them in teams and that sort of stuff. Your first brokerage, one, why did you choose that brokerage? Or did you even think about it? You just signed up. Was there any sort of thought process? And then and then moving to your next brokerage, what was the kind of decisions, things that you went through your mind that you needed? Why did you move? There must have been a need or a value that you saw somewhere else that was better than where you were at.
Mo money, mo money, mo money. JPAR was just a flat transaction fee company, and I wanted to make more money, and I wanted to just kind of do my own thing. I knew a couple guys that worked over there, and met with Sean, and he seemed cool, and it just seemed, it was honestly just.
So the value that you gestured just a few minutes ago about Sean, you didn't actually even really realize what value he was going to bring you.
Right.
Interesting.
Right, and it was just, and I've never honestly been great with, like, just to go back and speak to what you said about, like, Keller Williams, Watson, that's not really my style as far as, like, going through the classes and things like that. I'm a little bit of a wild card myself, you know, I just kind of, like, do my own thing.
Like to jump out and figure out how to fly on your way down.
Yeah, exactly. So, Sean was just great just because I had somebody to run things by all the time, you know, or he would, like, if I was, you know, one of the top few guys there. So, I mean, and not that he wouldn't do this for anybody, but anytime I called him, like, he'd be like, yeah, like, let's meet. What do you want to meet about? Can we talk? And, you know, him and I even ended up taking down some properties together. We did some wholesales together. We wholesaled a 20-unit apartment complex together.
Oh, wow.
We did all kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. So he became sort of a mentor,
sure,
in a way, and you know, or I don't
know about a mentor, more
coach,
like a go-to,
my
go-to guy,
a coach, confidant, consultant, sure, whatever. There, how did that? You know, obviously you can't. You know, what would happen if you never met Sean, right? If you went to JPAR and there was just some slug of a broker there that really was just like, okay, you know, I'm not giving you any fees. Go out there and do your thing so I can get my little fee. Yeah. You know, it wasn't really adding anything to you versus me. I mean, how do you, when you look back now, how did Sean change your trajectory in real estate? Or at least it sounds like obviously it ramped it up much faster.
Yeah. I think part of it was just sort of breaking off from where I was and just having a new start. And it had been like a couple years when I'd switched over to JPAR, so it was kind of like that transition of, all right, now all your work of your cold calls and your open houses and you're putting it out there on social media.
Reached a tipping point.
It's finally at that tipping point. So honestly, I think that was a large part of it.
Right.
But he definitely helped out a lot.
Well, I mean, do you have an assistant or anything right now? No, you're still operating solo. I mean, because you had a great last year and looking at your numbers and so forth. What is your current broker? What are they doing for you? Because I mean, you know, the volume that you're doing now, and we're going to talk about getting involved in the coffee shops, your time, a little time taken over there or whatever, that sort of thing. That, I mean, are you literally doing everything as your business now, or are you handing some of that stuff off because the support systems at the brokerage is covering them for you?
I'm doing everything.
You're literally doing everything, marketing and cold calling. Well,
there's some good systems in place at Compass that make creating the marketing materials easier.
what are some of the things that? Well, obviously you saw value, and that was why you went over there.
Well, they I don't know how much I'm allowed to say.
Well, you saw value there. What value is a wide open word.
I was provided an awesome.
Yeah.
I was provided an awesome bonus to sign there. I don't think I'm allowed to get any further into it than that.
Well, they attracted you over there, but I mean, yeah, I was attracted a very large bonus to go somewhere a year ago too, and it blew up. So then the bonuses should not only be, you should think beyond that, hopefully. But obviously, you go to any other brokerage. But what is the value that you see at Compass right now, as far as some of the systems that you just mentioned? What do you get? What do you feel is the benefit, and how you're using it to leverage your business?
Like I said, they've got a great user interface online. They've got some great marketing materials. I feel like they're a well-respected, well-known brokerage. Another big reason that I wanted to go there is because they've got such a presence here in Jacksonville, but also in Tampa and St. Pete, which is where I'll be spending a lot more time with, the restaurants that we're working on building down there. So just the fact that I could have, a brokerage with a major name recognition, I thought that could also sort of, because like you said, I mean, my numbers have been pretty good for a while. So, but I'm always thinking like, hey, so what's the next thing? What's the next step? How can I get better? And I just thought like, and in my head at the time, it was kind of like, okay, like it was like an England Volkers or a Berkshire or a Compass, like, because I'm thinking, how can I take it to the next step? And the next step for me was like, I love closing 35 deals a year, but I'd love it if the price average was like double. That'd be sick.
Yeah.
So I was like,
right.
It would help to maybe move over to, one of the companies that's got a little bit more of a
presence in that market
yeah,
area.
Because I'm kind of coming in like, hey, my numbers are great, but I'm the young guy. I was the young guy that worked at a company that not many people really knew.
So many of the agents I've had on, they reached a point in their business where they were tapped out as far as like time in the day, because they were doing everything like you're at now. Have you started to reach a point where, hey, you need not necessarily a full-time assistant, but a part-time assistant to kind of handle some of those things? Have you kind of gone through those? Is Compass talking to you, to the broker? Have you gone through some of those thoughts or talking to some of the other top agents who do have that assistant or transaction coordinator?
So I actually had a transaction coordinator when I was at JPAR. I decided to abandon that at Compass, with them taking a little bit more higher percentage of my transactional commission.
Well, they got to get paid.
Yeah, they got to make it back, right?
Yeah.
And right now, I just haven't really been, because I've been also focused on opening the restaurants.
Right.
I've been pretty happy with where my business is at in real estate at this time.
Right.
So I haven't really been working on, hey, I can't scale two businesses at one time.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. No, that's.
So if you ask me like, hey, like what are your long-term goals in real estate? Like, what do you want to do next in real estate? I've got those answers, but one thing at a time. I've also got a 14-month-old at home, so you can only do so
You're being
much.
pulled so many different directions. All right. Well, I mean, you brought up the coffee shops. Tell us how what your thoughts are. You're doing well in real estate, and then you walk into this coffee shop and like, wow, I'd like to do this, because I assume is what went off in your brain, like.
It's kind of weird. So before I've got my own office aside from the Compass office now, out at Jack's Beach, just like a awesome co-work space that I love. But before I had that office, I would go to coffee shops and work all the time. Just cool place to post up, made it a lot easier to sit somewhere and work for a longer period of time. You get food there.
There's some in town that are good people watching places.
Sure. Yeah.
And obviously, if you're a real estate agent,
you can meet people.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Get new business or whatever it might be. So the Southern Grounds at Neptune Beach was always one of my favorite places just to go and hang out and work. And then one day I saw, I was reading the Jack's Daily Record, and it said, that they're looking to start franchising, and it was just kind of like throwing up a Hail Mary just out of nowhere. Just like found out who owned the place, sent him a Facebook message. Hey man, love your spot, or whatever I said. I'm pretty sure I articulated a pretty good message.
Yeah, right.
But I love your spot. Would love to explore the opportunity. And he was nice enough to. The owner was nice enough to meet with me and sat down with him, and I just kind of told him everything that I loved about it and everything that made me believe in the brand, because it's not a franchise yet. I mean, they're franchising, but it'll be a franchise when we open, and
right.
And I just kind of explained the vision that I had for the brand, and I think we really aligned on that. And then he just kind of said, well, that's well and good, but you have like little to no restaurant experience, so
right.
if you can find a proven operator, then we can have a further discussion about this. Well, I didn't waste any time. I called one of my fraternity brothers who owns a couple restaurants here in town, Canopy Road Cafe. Go check them out if you haven't ever. They're awesome. Called those guys, and it's the Presti brothers.
Is there one on 210?
Yeah, there's one on 210
okay,
right next to Amber and Iron, and then there's another one on Phillips Highway, like over in Bayard. That was their first one.
Okay.
But I called him. He's a buddy of mine. I've sold these guys multiple properties. And we've always been talking about, like, hey, like, let's try to find another way to work together. And then this came up, and I said, how would you guys like to purchase the Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater territory and build out a bunch of Southern grounds there? And they're like, yes, let's do it.
It's kind of interesting. We're off. It's your story, so it's important. But so my curiosity triggers, 'cause I imagine this conversation was had. He's already got the Canopy Cafe. That's not a franchise. That's just him, right?
They're the first franchisees of Canopy Road.
Are they?
Which kind of made for nice for the story.
So there's other Canopy Roads in somewhere
started
else.
in Tallahassee.
Tallahassee. Yeah. Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay. So he understood how that worked.
And I understood the value of, like, hey, I'm going to bring on a partner that's...
So I imagine there's probably some market. So that market's probably not even it's probably owned by another Canopy Road franchisee over in the St. Pete area that you're talking about. Yeah. So coming in with the coffee shop is different, as he can get into that market now, yet utilize his experience from Canopy Road. Right, running those places. Sure. Similar thing. Okay, now that makes sense. I was thinking, if he had his own little 2 mom and pop shops, and then now he's going to spread himself thin, but really he's just duplicating a process with a different name on the front of the building. There's different.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, I think running,
because you haven't been to Southern Grounds yet,
no, right? I have not been to Southern Grounds
so
yet.
It's really so much more than a coffee shop, man.
Yeah,
you got to get over there. We like to call it a chef-driven coffee house, because it's really about the food first, I think. Hopefully I'm supposed to say
now, with Southern Grounds, obviously leading towards coffee, right? That's going to put everyone in that, it's not Southern cooking, it's Southern Grounds.
Yeah. So I would say it's definitely about
the food.
Amazing.
Okay.
Well, no, it's
are
about
we more
the amazing
slanted
coffee.
Toward breakfast or in a lunch, or what kind of like Canopy Road is?
No, it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
It does dinner too.
I mean, you can get everything from an omelet in the morning to steak frites at night there. Mm-hmm. I mean, and basically, or a mahi sandwich at lunch. I mean, you can get everything in between. There's alcohol there. There's, you can get beer, you can drink wine.
Okay. All right. Well,
so it's really so versatile, I guess I like to call it, that was one of the things that attracted me to it. And it's all very healthy food, and I just kind of feel like it's like in the direction that the world's sort of going.
I guess what I was leading to is, him having experience running his Canopy Road, the back office stuff that's going on. When, those guys are, how do you run a restaurant, right? You got to order food. It's got to come in. You don't order it too soon, too much, because it might spoil. There's a whole calculation, what's your profit and loss, which is imagine where you came in, because that's my next question is where, with all the, the partners, to go into a business like that. Obviously, we know a lot of restaurants, unfortunately some, I think because they're mismanaged, or maybe selected the wrong location, whatever it may be, they go belly up. Yeah, they go belly up. A lot of times it is management, not keeping the quality of service up, that type of thing, quality food, type of thing. But him being able to take that background and now, obviously walk in and understand how this is going to work, even though it's a different menu, different atmosphere, but the basis of running a restaurant, that's the core. There's so many people start a restaurant, they don't know really what it takes, what they don't know what they don't know, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think, and just to bring you back to real estate for a second, because I know that's where you want to be.
Yeah.
I think so Sonny Downey actually said this to me for the first time, which was, you're either working in your business or working on your business,
Right.
on the outside, or you're working on the day-to-day stuff. We sort of make a great team for the Southern Grounds because those guys really know how to work in the business while I'm working on the business.
There you go.
Where's our next location going to be? How are we going to market this? I brought on some equity partners to help us scale faster, just different things like that.
Brilliant.
Because we're looking to scale to 9 locations total down there.
Wow.
So it's going to be really important that they have that high level of service and great front of the house, great back of the house. We're hiring the right people, and that's, we just sort of, we make a good team.
It's so important to, that's you as a real estate agent. Your front and back office, and the service, quality of service you're giving to every customer is your longevity. You're just taking in the restaurant, obviously trying to duplicate yourself multiple times. I don't know how many people operate one of those restaurants, 30, 40, 50, 60 people in a staff. And obviously everyone being on the same page for the most part in having the quality service. Because like I said, you get one bad manager and it could, in a short period of time, your business it has a bad name and no one wants to go by there and you're out. Because these spaces aren't cheap. No. Whether you're building one and renting it from yourself or leasing it, they're not cheap. You dive in full time. You said you in like just a matter of 6 months or whatever, you had made as much as you were making in the previous job. What are some of the things that you immediately started inputting that you felt gave you that success that early? Because obviously the average agent is not that successful in their first 6 months of pretty much being full time. What do you think are some of the things that you immediately were doing to drive that business that you got early?
Pure grace from God and luck, honestly.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You didn't just say, you had to do something.
Nope.
You didn't make a phone call. Nope. Didn't tell any.
Just that
you
guy
prayed to
there.
God to tell all your friends that you're now in real estate?
He just looked out for me, man. Honestly. That's the only thing I can really tell you about that.
Yeah, you're local. You were born here. Obviously, like you said, you had a lot of Florida State alumni and so forth. So, what are some of the things that you've done, to ramp your business up? I'm sure Sean probably talked to you about it to expose yourself, to let those people know that you're doing real estate. They should be calling you.
So that's a question I can answer.
Okay.
That first 6 months, no, it had nothing to do with me.
Well, somehow they found out you were doing real estate.
I guess so. I do just talk a lot, so
yeah.
Maybe that helped. But since then, I think that the social media presence has been huge. Obviously, everybody knows that that's like a big part of business these days when you have your own business. But I put a lot out there on that. I think the biggest thing, I guess, that I would say to anyone trying to get bigger is just never be afraid to ask for someone's business. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, I'll ask for anybody's business. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'll be talking to a guy at a sandwich shop 2 tables down from me, and if it gets anywhere close to there, I'll be like, well, I'd love to have your business. When are you going to buy or sell your next property? And they're just like,
yeah, a lot of them look at you dumbfounded because it's not even a thought in their mind. But now you created that emotional, reaction to them, and now they remember you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hate to relate it back to this right now, but it is the best example I can think of. You know, like, because I remember my dad trying to teach me to talk to girls when I was like 13 years old, and he goes, "Man, once you stop caring about if you're gonna get her a yes or a no, like, things are gonna be a lot more abundantly successful for you."
Right.
And I feel like that it's honestly the same thing with anything in sales and with real estate. When you get the fear out, like, to ask for somebody's business, and you just start asking everybody like, hey, I'd really appreciate your business. I think that that's the first step to really building a good base of clients. And then after that, it's obviously about doing a good job for people, which is something that I take a lot of pride in. Like I always want whoever I serve to be like,
well, talking stuff about,
no, he busted his ass for me. I mean, every single day he's messaging me about something else that I can do, or just going so far above what I thought agents actually did. And because then that's when the referrals start coming. And then that's where I'm at in my business now, where I don't have to make cold calls. I don't work open houses very often unless one of my sellers wants me to. And I still have, plenty of business.
Give a valuable tip, because I know you made me think of a couple people, Bobby Brennan and Marissa Scott. They're very good agents. I remember in their shows, and there may have been others that mentioned the show, but these two just come to mind. I remember Marissa Scott talking about, because she worked for Mary Kay before she got into real estate. So that she did a lot of sales training. And she goes, if I can sell, lip balm to the guy behind me in the grocery store line, that was her thing. She would create conversations or somehow start from cold in a place like you said, like in a restaurant, in a grocery store line, that type of thing. Bobby Brennan talks about her church conversations. I forget her brother calls it something. But basically, she uses that the after church time to really, she spends some time there talking with everybody after church. That's the way she does. She keeps top of mind. The average person's they're a little awkward.
The old church sphere.
Yeah, but they're a little off a little bit in creating that cold conversation. Like you said, you're in a restaurant or you're sitting at the coffee shop, somebody sits a table over from you. What are some things that you do to, one, you got to overcome your own personal fear, right? That fear of them saying yes or no. But really, in real estate, how many people you go, hey, here's my real estate card. Oh, great. I want to list my house tomorrow. I mean, that doesn't happen all the time. Most people are like, oh, great. Thank you for your card. I'm going to notify.
Well, I guess I should clarify that I'm not like I'm not like walking up to people that are like, who are you? Right. I just mean like when those conversations happened organically, like don't be afraid. Because there was definitely a long point of time where it's like I hadn't closed a ton of business. I wasn't super confident in saying, hey, like you should let me work with you. Mm-hmm. Like there's a period where that's awkward. But the more and more business that you do and the more people that you work with, and I think more importantly, the more and more you educate yourself and learn, you just become more and more confident about saying like, hey, I'm actually I actually believe I'm the best person to represent you, which is sort of another part of the transition that makes it a lot more genuine, because when you're on your third deal, you can't possibly believe you're the best person to represent that person. Right. But once you've done, 80, 90, whatever, you're like, no, I have literally been through everything. There's not a type of property that you could try to buy. There's not a type of financing you could try to do. There's not a multiple offer you could try to do. There's nothing I haven't dealt with.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily.
There's always something,
you can't
but
overcome. You've done enough where you can
you're like, hey, dude, I got you. Like no matter what,
you can overcome any sort of curveball now. What's behind the curve, right? Because you've done enough transaction, has experience. By observation and even personally, just thinking, your probably attitude is, if I'm talking to somebody, if I somehow a conversation or someone gets in my zone before we leave, they know what I'm in real estate. Is that sounds like the kind of the subliminal attitude that you have.
I think for a while it was that. Mm-hmm. Now not so much, because now again, like I feel like the longer you do it, if you're doing it right, the more organic it becomes. Because now it's like almost everywhere that I am, it'll be like someone will introduce me like, this is my boy Jordan. He sold me a property. Yeah. This guy crushes it if you ever need anything. Right. And it's like it's a lot more of a soft opening. It's like, hey, what's up? Let me know.
Yeah. But it's so great
to get to that.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say because I can't remember what the stats are, but I know what they were like a couple years ago. It was like 5% of people who become agents make it. Mm-hmm. So I guess one thing I thought about kind of prior to coming on this show is like, I think I'm not the only one. Like everyone like thinks about quitting in like that first year.
Everyone gets punched, slapped in the face, whatever you want to say figuratively, and yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if everyone has the ability to do what we're talking about. I think there's a personality for this job. But
It's a personality. Well, personality I think helps, but mindset. Would you think mindset maybe
a combination of the two?
Yeah.
But if you stick with it long enough, it does get to that point, because it goes to the point from where you have like no business to the point where you have some business, but you're still having to work really hard for it, and then that point where you're, starting to get more confident, but you're still seeming pretty thirsty to everyone around you.
Yeah, right.
And then it gets to that point where you're like, hey man, would love to have your business. If not, no worries, kind of thing. And then once you get to that point where you're getting enough referrals, and it's so much more attractive to work.
How
with
old
you
were
too,
you
I think,
when you went full time? How old were you?
27.
27. Did you have that period? Especially the friends and family. You were local, but did you experience some of that where they're like, let's see if Jordan sticks with this, because I think everyone goes to that experience where there's some family members or friends, they want to be your first deal. Whether you got experience or not, they're your friends, and you're going to be in real estate. I'm selling my house. Jordan's going to do it, and I don't care if it's the first deal or not. They don't even think about it. Where other some kinds of friends and family, they watch for a little while. They support you,
sure,
but they're not necessarily. Maybe some of them gave their transactions to someone else for whatever reasons we don't know.
Well,
but as time has gone on, and they're like, "Oh, Jordan's sticking with this. Oh, Jordan's doing pretty good. Maybe Jordan knows what he's doing. I can trust him now to handle my transactions." Have you seen that?
100% have seen that.
Yeah.
Especially a lot of friends' parents. That's where I've seen that the most.
Yeah.
It's like when I first got in, it was no, and then now I work with a bunch of my friends' parents. They've known him forever, and we're proud of him. Look, he's really made some of himself. We love to work with him and support him.
Did you go? We talk about this. Every salesperson, goes through it. You get the no, but she's like, man, am I really doing the right thing? Should I quit? Because you didn't get that parents deal in your first year. And it gets frustrating. Like, oh, why'd they use someone else? Why didn't they use me? And what advice would you give a new agent when it comes to working with friends and family after what you've experienced?
When it comes to working with friends and family.
Yeah, because the people who we think we trust, but they're not ready to trust you yet.
Well,
don't get upset.
I don't think you should get upset at all, because what I also like to tell somebody that's like, hey, I am looking to buy a $600,000 house, and my girlfriend's sister just got her license. I say to them, we'll buy her a nice bottle of champagne or take her to dinner, but this is one of the most expensive decisions you're ever going to make in your life. You won't even, if she just became a barber, you wouldn't let her cut your hair. So why would you let her handle a $600,000 transaction for you?
Right.
So because I preach that, it really wouldn't make sense for me to also say, oh yeah, you deserve all your close friends and family's business. So I guess if I was going to give a new agent advice on that, I would say, you need to be understanding about that, and don't jeopardize the opportunity to work with that person in the future.
Right.
Because I've also ran into situations where people chose to not work with me after we'd had a conversation about working together, handled it cool, and got that person's business randomly like 2 years later.
Right.
Because just even a particular situation, I won't say like any names or anything, but showed some people some property, and they still ended up doing like $1 million deal with somebody else. And I just said, congratulations. I'm super happy for you guys. Glad you found it, whatever. And since that, about a year and a half later, I ended up selling their place in Sawgrass, and am now their undisputed.
You did not
agent.
Drop them off. You didn't cut them out of your
I didn't
CRM.
Say, screw you guys for what you did. Yeah,
you still stayed in touch with them, and that's great advice. That's great advice. Obviously, I think anyone who's been in the business a long time is learn that one way, shape, or form or another. Because like you said, we know 80% of the people who are getting licenses today in 24 months are not in the business. They don't renew.
Yeah.
And the fact is that, maybe they did go with their friend's daughter who just got their license for that $600,000 transaction, but it's likely she's not going to be around for the second transaction,
Right.
or investment property, whatever they may be doing. Since we're on new agents, okay, I mean, what if they called you in the office today and said, "Hey, Jordan, here's I don't know, is Compass really hire? They don't necessarily, unless they come in on a team, they don't really recruit."
I think there's some sort of volume floor that they don't.
Yeah. I know some teams over there that have like real green agents, but because I think just because they're on the team, that's why they're there. It's the impression I was given. I don't know. You know more than you're in the office.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any desire to expand that way, or are you just like being solo doing your own thing?
To a team?
Yeah. To bring on.
I think I may have my own brokerage one day. That's an aspiration, just to have my own brokerage, but I don't see it. I don't see myself ever wanting to do like a DJ and Lindsay style. Brokerage.
Yeah, that's a machine. Yeah.
I don't.
You got to have some core people around you for that. Yeah.
Or just anything. I don't think I want to educate someone like from the very beginning. Like I think if I own my own brokerage, I would want it to be like I've established myself for long enough and made enough friends in the real estate industry that I come over and I say, hey, maybe let me open a boutique brokerage that's got,
all right,
20, 30
I'm going to phrase this
agents
question this way then.
That do high volume,
Let's say that day is today, or maybe NEFAR called you and said, hey, Jordan, we need someone to come in and speak. You might have a whole variety of agents in the room, right? Or like you said, you're starting your brokerage today and you've recruited a half dozen, somewhat producing, maybe not, Jack's real producer level yet, but they're doing something. What would you want that was today? What is today? The 21st, right? 21st of June, 2023. What would you be telling those 2 or 3 things you'd be telling those agents they need to be doing today in today's marketplace that we're working right now?
Whoa, what?
2 or 3 things. 2 or 3 things they need to be doing as part of their business.
If I was,
whether
if
it's
this
marketing,
was my brokerage, and I was talking to them.
Yeah, you're got your sales meeting.
Okay.
What would you want? What are 2 or 3 things you'd want every one of your agents doing? Based on the current market conditions in June of 23.
I don't know about based on the current market conditions, but the number one thing that I would recommend anyone doing is providing value first to anyone that even opens the door to potentially working with them. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing that I always try to do is provide that. Am I messing up?
Yeah, you're good.
No,
you're good. Stay right there. You're good.
Provide value first. So if anyone even talks to you about, like I feel like some people maybe withhold like up front until they've got like sort of a commitment from people. If someone tells me that they're at all interested in doing anything with
buying
their
or
property,
selling, yeah,
I'll take the time and I'll run a bunch of comps for them, tell them what I think they could sell their property for, tell them, help them out with anything that they want. Sometimes even get them a settlement sheet from a title company that can show them, hey, if we could sell it at this price, here's how much you'd net after all your closing costs and commissions, and literally just here you go. Like provide them the value, man, because that'll, even if all those people don't work with you, I mean, it's going to convert a lot more business. And when you provide value to people up front, you just got to believe that karmically, like it's going to work out for you.
That's definitely going to be a reel from the show that we could definitely cut right there. Because they're interested. They've whatever gestured for you before you've gone even really on a listing appointment, or maybe when you come in for the listing appointment, you're pouring out as much value that you can. You're not trying to, well, I don't want to tell them that until they sign the line. Then I know they have some sort of top secret information another agent doesn't have or something. In pouring value. How I'd want to. I mean, I think that statement kind of closes that there. I mean, we could dig in on I think you gave some examples on what adding value. What do you think is the reason why some agents? Because I think that's common sense to me. But we know people aren't, right? We know that there aren't. They're not adding that value. What do they think they're benefiting, or just they're just being sort of lazy? Could have spent an extra 10, 15 minutes getting this extra information.
Yeah, I think that some people are lazy. I think that one of the reasons I'm not a fan of part-time agents in general is that, like, because maybe it's a part-time agent, just for one example, would be that they're part-time agents are in it for commission. I mean, they're in it to make a little money
Side
on the
job.
side, right?
Yeah.
Whereas you're looking for a long-term relationship, like when I'm doing a deal with somebody, I'm not looking to make like that 10 grand. Like I'm looking to do that deal with them and then sell that house in 7 years, help them buy their new house. 3 years later, help their kids buy a house, help their sister buy a condo when she wants a vacation condo. Like
hopefully, you can get 4 or 5 referrals over the next number of years. Yeah.
And I actually, totally different subject, but I look at my my business in a 10-year plan with my Excel book of contacts. So I think,
and knowing statistically that so many, we know statistically so many people are going to move every so many years. I mean, there's statistics on it. I think, there's something that's out there. For every 100 people, so many of them are going to do some sort of house deal in the next year, right?
Yeah.
So you got to keep putting that mindset of pouring the value. Is that just a mindset that you were doing right away? It's just like, this is the way I'm going to do it? Or is this something, again, listening to a podcast, listening to those, the reels and so forth, that you picked up and said, I got to take on this mindset because I want to be doing this long term. I've made some good money, and for me to really do this, I've got to just be that value adder.
I mean, you're right. And while you were talking, I was trying to figure out where I'd heard that first. I can't remember who it was, but I learned it.
It clicked with you.
I learned it in some audio book or something somewhere.
Yeah.
Which is sort of the great thing about just feeding yourself that stuff all the time is you don't need to suck every single bit of that information in, but if that's what you're feeding yourself, like
that came across you, it clicked with you and resonated with you, and then you put in this. Okay, so that was one thing. We're in front of this group of your new team at your new brokerage or whatever, pouring value, all the value you have in everyone, because it will come back. Maybe you didn't get that deal, but they're probably going to go, man, that guy was really good. Some people use another agent and then end up referring someone like yourself to their friends, and they're mad because they didn't use you. They end up having a bad transaction with someone else. Yeah. So, I mean, pouring the value and great advice. What else should they be doing?
Well, I guess the next thing would be like what I talked to you about before, like always ask for the business.
Yeah.
Always ask for the business.
And how?
I mean, there's a bunch of little. It's a bunch of little 100%. Things after that.
Yeah, that's why I'm only asking for 2 or 3.
Don't give someone your card, get their number. I mean, just there's so many little things.
Yeah, I mean, imagine you phrase it different way, depending on the conversation and the setting, the context of your conversation. But even if you're just talking to somebody, wherever it be, the guy at the, let's talk about you. Somehow you mentioned the guy at the restaurant. You started talking to him over whatever. I don't know. Maybe you're sitting in the bar and you look up and there's some, Florida State something on the TV, and the guy down, you just somehow started a conversation. You started talking to him. How, when you say ask for the business, because at that point you don't know if this guy's buying or selling a home right now. He might, or even not even thinking about it. But when you say ask for the business, because in a way you are asking for his business. It might be 3 years from now, might be 3 hours from now. We don't know. He might go, you know what, I do need to buy a home, or you know what, we have been talking about selling. Let's talk about selling. Now I've got a realtor in front of me. I want to talk. But when you say ask for the business, how are you phrasing that to someone like this guy you just met, who, he didn't call you for? That's
a tough one, man. That's such a situational thing. Like, it totally depends on if I'm in a bar or a coffee shop or an open house.
Right.
I guess the easiest one to give you an example of that everyone can relate to would be like at an open house. It's like, always ask for that person's business before they leave. And they may tell you that they're working with someone else, or they may tell you that they're not ready yet. And then that's another place where you want to provide the value.
And it's just subtle. Hey, you guys are looking. Appreciate you coming by my open house. Here's my card. I'd really like to work with you.
Nope. I would
No?
like to get their phone number and their email
Okay.
every time. And it, like, I'll let them, like, very rarely does someone tell you no, is the thing. Like, that's what I've learned, is very rarely is someone tell you no. And not all those people work with you anyways, but I mean, usually they'll tell you yes. And this goes back to the providing value thing, because a lot of times when someone says, like, hey, well, we're just not really ready yet, that's the point I think that a lot of agents, like, quit on that effort.
I agree.
Okay, so provide them the value. Say, hey, well, how is, looking around on Zillow isn't really that great. Let me set you up on an MLS search that feeds you your exact criteria. Like, when you guys want to buy, where do you want to look?
Right.
And you want to look at Kernan and Beach Boulevard and Hodges. And what do you think your price range is going to be? How many bedrooms do you need?
Right.
And then you say, hey, I can set you up with your exact search criteria, and it takes me all of 10 minutes, and it'll feed you updates as those properties come on the market. That way, when you guys are ready,
Right.
you'll be all set. I mean, does that sound cool?
Yeah.
And then they'll call you when they are. I mean, so because if you don't, you guys aren't really ready yet. All right, well, thanks for coming out. Have a good day. And then in 2 years, they'll work with someone else. Like, you want as many people in that contact database as possible, man. And then maybe they're not looking at your emails, and I've seen, like, 6 months later, so-and-so's viewed your email, and they start viewing it every night. Well, then now it's time to call them.
Right.
Hey, notice you started checking those emails out. How you been? You're looking at houses now?
Yeah. So. Well, no, I totally agree with you. I think too. Would you agree? A lot of agents really are only have a vision of 30 to 60 days. They're trying to get the transaction now, so it can hopefully close in July, and that's where they're not realizing they need to just, what you're talking about is really building up this pipeline of people who may call you in 3 weeks and say, hey, we saw this house, can you show it to us? They may be 3 years, but because you've now built them up, put them in your CRM, whatever, type of thing, and it's feeding them this information that June of 2025, when you're going, oh, what are my closings going to be like in July of 25? You get a phone call from a guy you talked to in June of 23.
Yeah, well, and it's also a great way to finish over your projections and stack money, because you're like, okay, you're starting to look at, like, your bills, and you're looking at, the volume that you have coming in, and if you're, smart and you like math, and, well, really just if you're smart and you're trying to plan ahead for your finances and your business, you can look at, about what volume equals what amount of money and how that's going to pay your bills and where you're going to be sitting after that. So, I mean, the way that I do it is, I'm good with this current volume for the next 3 months. And if I'm good on, like, what I'm making over the next 3 months on just what I know is there, like, for the for sure things in the pipeline,
listings,
I'm like, well, then I'm great, because I know I'll get 2 or 3 more randoms in here.
Right.
At that point.
Because
Because
we'll pop up,
for long
quick
enough.
30-day sale, or maybe a quick cash sale you'll add to that. Yeah.
It always happens.
You've invested in some real estate yourself. We talked about it early on. I mean, what have you? Because we talked about I think every agent needs to, especially if they start doing well, needs to invest in real estate. It's like, you're doing real estate, why don't you have your own, rental part? Especially right now, where rentals are well, with all these apartments, I think are going to go online all at the same time. It might drag that business down, but rentals are good right now. You're getting good rents for them. But anyway, to understand how that process works, because I think probably 99% of the agents out there do not have their own investment, Airbnb, whatever it may be. They're only got their own personal home. But what have you learned doing your own investing that's added to your toolbox when working with clients? What is some of it, especially for new investors? Because you get someone who's investing for their first time, they don't know what to expect, right? They only hear the horror stories from their mother-in-law, who says, "Oh, if something breaks, you're gonna have to go over and clean it up."
I think you start to learn a little bit more about wealth, for one thing. Just that, okay, well, even if it's I'm paying mostly interest and not principal at first. Like, you can look at you can go pull up your statements and just, aside from the cash flow that you're making on these properties, like you're like, I am owning more of these properties every single month, and it's something that's on auto pay because you're making money off the property,
Right.
and you also know that, hey, like property value goes up over time. So I mean, really, that's like long-term investment stuff for me. And then I've learned also, yeah, like you were saying before, like a few hard lessons. I've learned a lot more about houses in general and things that go wrong with houses. And I've made some great new connections on who to call when something goes wrong. Like, I mean, even if that's just now I have a great plumber because my plumbing
On
went
speed
down
dial.
at my investment property, and now when my client needs one, I got you know,
Right.
or whatever it might be.
100%.
So, I mean, you just learn more about real estate. And
No,
houses.
my wife and I are saying that same experience. I mean, we have 5 units in the Latira condos, and the different things have gone on in there.
Where's that at?
And down within the King and Bear.
Okay.
You know, they do short-term rentals in there. We put my parents in there originally. That was our original buy, and then we've got 4 more units. Well, she's in real estate, so now she's got clients.
Your
who
wife
are-
is?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
cool.
she's getting calls now from people in there. Know she's involved, setting it up. She gives great service. You know, our units are. She wants them to be impeccable, and because
She's getting calls for sales in there.
well,
or-
she's getting calls not only for
Property
when
management?
units want to sell. She doesn't manage them. She will what do you call refer renters in there.
Oh, you
but other
guys- you
agents are
guys
calling,
should
going, "Hey,
start-
do you know any rental?" And then
You guys
she's
should
got
start managing some
yeah,
properties.
because eventually eventually some of those people sell. You know, you're getting renters in there. A lot of them are going short term. Some people are moving here and they want to rent there for 3 or 4 months while they're looking for a home, or their house is being built, and now you're creating
Are
these
you
relationships.
managing the 5 in there that you own?
We manage the 5 that we own, yes, personally.
Why don't you guys just start managing?
We're working.
I'm
We're
sure that
working on that. We'll talk
conversation's
offline.
happening,
We're working on that part. Well, yeah, because it is getting that busy for her. Because these other homeowners in there see the quality of what she does, and then the quality of people she puts in their
Some more
units.
cash flow in there without
It's
having to
yeah,
invest.
she's getting the referral fee.
Your cleaning ladies are already there.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, like you said, we'll talk offline. I was thinking we should be doing that.
yeah. So, we talked about Southern Grad. We talked a little bit about Compass, but we talked a little bit of the things about real estate, particularly that you've learned, and maybe you would, if you're revising other. Well, what have you learned about yourself through this process of being out, really cutting the umbilical cord from the salary or the rate that you were getting going totally out on your own. Now you're opening other business. You got investment properties. What have you learned about yourself?
I never want to have a boss again would be number one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's number one.
Yeah.
I mean, just understanding that that's not where it's at. Because, I mean, there was even a period of time, I'd say until I was 25, 26, I was like, I actually thought that my goal was to work for a big company, that would be the coolest thing in the world to have a 6-figure salary with benefits, for,
manage
a
all
big-
these people,
a
be in
big
charge.
company. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have a great Christmas bonus. That'll be amazing.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
oh my God, that's terrible. Just that whole concept is terrible. So that's the biggest thing I learned is that I just want to be in business for myself, even if our business is a small business. It's you used to think back on that and be like, oh man, the guy with the billboards in town, that's so goofy. I think you think that when you're younger, and then when you get older, you're like, that dude with the billboards in town has a yacht. It's not small.
Right.
It's great business. You know what I mean? So yeah.
I
I don't know if that was a good answer to that
No,
question.
that's a beautiful answer. Actually, I mean, a lot of people get into real estate. We joke, especially with a lot of the brokers who are growing their trying to recruit or whatever, and they get these people in there, agents who want to be agents, and they're like, oh, I want the freedom, and obviously, we laugh at that. You're at the whim of your customer. Your customer's ready to buy a house. You got to focus on that. But the freedom that we don't in corporate America of going and saying, hey, I'd like to take the day before Christmas and the day after Christmas off and get permission to do that. Yeah, that's the freedom that you get away from. That's the freedom you get.
I mean,
that's the freedom you get.
I don't ever get the day before or the day after Christmas off.
Well,
It feels like, but you're right. I mean, so much of it can be done. I think that the beautiful part about it is so much. I mean, now it's a little less advantageous, I guess, because everyone used to have to go into an office, and now people are working from home. But like my answer before would have definitely been, I mean, like, do you know how much of my work is done beside a pool with a Corona?
Yeah.
A lot of it. You know, I'll be with
you
my
can
kids.
set up anywhere. You can flip the laptop up. Really, I mean,
Yeah.
it's really.
You can do most things on your phone unless you literally have to write a contract or send something. I even use DocuSign on my phone. I mean, not with a contract because I want to read. I want to read that through. But if I just need like a quick form or something signed, like I'll send that out.
My wife is good at doing the DocuSign on the phone. I don't know how she does it. I can't. Yeah, 100%. There's the pressure that if you don't get out of bed next week, you're not going to get paid. Yeah. You know, there's that pressure, but where along in that time
you'll probably get fired if you do that.
Corporate America. You call in sick for the second week. They're like, hey, do you still want to work here? You know, and dealing, and then like you said, managing people. Oh my God, bringing in between HR and all these compliance things that you have to do. What a headache. You know, they get paid a lot, but man, some of these guys are under tremendous stress, depending on what businesses they're in when they're managing hundreds of, technically over hundreds of people under them. They got managers, type of thing. It's not
small
easy.
Talking with people that you don't like every day.
Yeah,
That's
that could be that too. Yeah. In talking to just agents that may be listening right now, you've experienced several brokers in your career. Okay. You are more of a trailblazer, like you mentioned. You could, you go to a broker. Your broker's added extra value you didn't even expect. Talking about Sean from that standpoint. But if someone's out there today, they're not. You're unique. You're that less than 1% guy that probably, if everything else collapsed around you, you're going to find a way to survive, right? But there's a lot of agents who are dependent on whether it's the team or knowing they got a solid broker behind them to, whether it's help them structure their day, really handhold them through a lot of different things. They need a broker. What do you think are some of the most important things that, in that environment, in your experience in seeing other agents, that a broker needs to deliver to their teams or their organizations? I know it's a difficult question for you because you don't think that way. I'm thinking that because a lot of these people, I think, choose a wrong broker, and just like in life, you choose the wrong job, you find out you don't like it, right? You go work for broker A, and you find out you don't like it. You may quit real estate, but because you don't realize B, C, D, E, F, and G do their business completely different.
Right.
Yeah.
So what does a broker need to?
Yeah. What do you think is the most important thing a broker needs to add to their organization?
I think it really depends on what sort of organization you're running. We kind of talked about that a little bit. Like if I opened my own brokerage at some point down the line, I would want to work with a bunch of experienced agents. And if that were the case, you would want to do mostly educational stuff and networking type stuff, and just kind of hone in on people's pipelines, see how they're organizing things. We kind of talked about some of the ways that I organize things. I think it would just be little tweaks and tips. And then obviously if you're working for the kind of brokerage where you're trying to just bring on everyone that passes their real estate license, I mean, you have to have a totally different structure there. So
right.
That's a tough question.
Yeah, it is a tough question. I knew that was going to be a tough question for you. That's why I was trying to add a little bit to draw that out of you. I
think I got a little bit of ADD mid question there.
Well, if in an hour and 15 minutes that we've been talking, my evaluation, you're kind of you're the real smart kid in the class. In the class of, I don't know if you were the smart kid in class in school or not, but you're a smart kid. You're doing well in real estate, and some of the things you've picked up and you haven't deeply thought about it because just for no reason, there's no reason you had to. why the others are not doing what you're doing, right? So me as the podcast of the real estate excellence, I'm trying to bring everybody up, right? I'm wondering why doesn't this person see what this person's doing that's killing it over there? Why is they not calling them and asking them for advice or having a coffee date? Because this person up here, I find on most of my guests, they want people to call them. And they will sit down and have coffee with them and say, "Hey, this is what I would be doing right now." That's why I asked that question. What would you recommend?
I mean, well, if anybody reached out to me, well, number one, you called me the smart kid in class. I did not tell anyone that I did not say that on this show. But if anyone ever reaches out to me, I mean, going back to the provide value thing being the best thing that you can do for clients too, and just karmically. Like if anyone ever reached out to me and was like, "Hey, like I'd like to have lunch with you and talk about some of the things that you're doing to help be successful," oh my God, I would totally meet with them.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to. Because it's happened a couple times. It doesn't happen every
well,
day,
even like you're saying, adding value. Somebody's like, "Well, okay, well, what is that?" Well, you mean if you sat down, if you may already have, you probably have a list. Again, it might be in your mind, but they would write it down of what would be adding value when you're going to a listing appointment. Someone goes, "Hey, well, I'm interested in listing my house. How can I pour value in it?" Well, here's 10 things that I would have information on.
Sure.
They may only have 3 or 4 of those things. Their mind's they have not enough experience or whatever to realize there's 6 or 7 other things that you do that pours that value into them, for example. I think it's come naturally by your instinctive entrepreneurship is what I'm getting from you. Yeah. Because I think there's some people who are, Michael Jordan, greatest basketball player ever, doesn't mean he would be a great coach.
Right.
Yeah. It takes another, you have to put yourself put them get in their shoes, and then because you talked to I'm sure you watched the Chicago Bulls or the what were they called, the Last Dance. Yeah, and how everyone Michael Jordan just is super competitive, and the other players had to realize they had to raise their level. Or they're likely off the team because he could tell, "Hey, I don't want that guy anymore. He's a freaking lazy ass. Get him off my team," and they would probably cut him. Yeah.
And I don't think I'd ever. If I did my own brokerage or something one day, I don't think I'd ever be like that. But at the same time, I don't think I would want to do one where I'm not like the pick up your spirits cheerleader.
Yeah,
never.
Yeah, you got to be self motivated. I think what makes the great teams great here in the area that I've noticed, I always refer to Christina because I think she has watched her totally evolve from zero to hero as a team leader. Christina Welch with the Keller Williams is finding those like-minded people around you. So finding other people that think and are motivated like you are.
People that are hungry. I need them to ask me questions. I need you to be asking me how you can help and how you can provide value, how you can get better.
Do you surround yourself with 4 or 5 of those people, then you can grow to 20, 30 people very quickly because that core group is all aligned. Like we talked about in your restaurants, supplying that same service, whether it's the guy in the back doing the dishes or the hostess out front, everybody in between has that same mindset of what level of service they're supposed to be providing.
Sure.
Right. Anything you want to add? Anything that we did not talk about that is important to know about Jordan?
I think we covered it, man.
All right. I'm gonna finish up with this for this reel for you right here. Why are you the best agent to work with in Northeast Florida?
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
You're just gonna add that question.
It's a great interview question. This is your chance to shine, but summarize a lot of things that we got up, and I'm hopefully we can cut this out as a reel, and somebody sees it and connects with you. Yeah.
I think from a buyer's end, I'm really, especially just from still being young, I've still worked with a lot of first-time home buyers. So if it's your very first time, I've dealt with all the questions, I've dealt with all the mishaps and I know everything that they're going to ask me. Mm-hmm. Nothing's too silly. So I've dealt with all that with the first-time home buyers. I've dealt with multiple offer situations. I've broken records in neighborhoods for highest price per square foot sale, highest purchase price for sales in neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and I work hard, provide great service. I'm always available. I don't know. I guess that's
Well,
all.
no,
I don't have like a great answer for you.
Well, you thought one of your assets was
Maybe,
you drove,
I'm not, but I think I'm one of
you
the
got
best.
your sellers. You got your sellers a top price in a neighborhood.
More than one. I've done that.
What do you think? What do you think helped you do that?
Well, I think in both of them, the sellers actually did an excellent job renovating those properties. And then I did some things that drove the price up in those multiple offer situations, I think.
Well, holding your ground, I would imagine, because the other agents are coming in and say, "Hey, nothing else is sold in there for that."
Right.
You know, what do you?
That's really so hard to to provide
articulate.
You like an answer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's me on the phone, man.
Yeah.
I can't really tell you, but I'm pretty good on the phone, I guess. And that's hard to explain even what that means, right? Like, it's like, whatever I say, I just figure out what to say on these calls.
Well, that's almost like I was getting back before. There's some things that you do that is a culmination of all your experience, your life or business, whatever. It's your culmination, and then it's coming out, and it's coming out naturally for you. You're not actually going, "Oh yeah, I remember that deal. This is what I did. Yeah, okay, here's my answer." You're actually able to come off, right off the cuff, basically, with a logical answer, whatever you lack of better terms describing it, and come off and have that negotiation. Because there's a lot of agents, and again, obviously standing beside my wife a lot of times when she takes a phone call, and I love the psychology of that conversations that go on. She had one the other day, and I won't mention the amount because it might disclose that person if that person's listening, who it was. But it was like, "Oh, okay, we'll come down this much," and it's like, that's like, here's a penny. It's like that's just going to create angst on the other side, right? They made an offer, and then you counter with dropping it a couple pennies. Like, do you want to sell the house or not? Because someone's going to be insulted one way or another, or could be. But then it's the agent who has to, like the conduits, right? The two agents now have to get together before they pass it to the other person. But knowing that you may tick this other person off, you're having to take this and filter it, and then actually then pass it on to here, so you hopefully have a positive interaction with your client to be able to go back, right?
Yeah, and it's definitely like this rock paper scissors psychological chess thing too, especially when you're working with a buyer and they're like, "Hey, well, we want to start here," and I'm like, "Look, if you start there, they might get pissed off and only bring it down like very, very little. Yeah, but if you start here, like, and I always do tell buyers that you get the biggest indicator as to how much you can potentially get off the price and how much wiggle room there is based on the first counter. Yeah. If you don't lowball too much, right? Like if a house is listed at 700 and you lowball 620, they might tell you 698, right? or maybe you come in at 670 and they really do only go down to 698 and you're like, there's not a lot of room here. But maybe you come in at 680 or 675, let's say, and they immediately drop to 690, and then you've got a pretty good indicator like, okay, they're probably going to meet us in the middle of 675 and 690. Done, yeah. But you get your best indicator right there off that first one.
100%.
But I guess just one more thing I was thinking that I wanted to say about what you said before, and I'm sure there's someone listening to this that's like, that guy's a jerk. What's he talking about? But I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is to did I get back in?
You're good.
Okay, cool. Is to like develop a connection with the other agent on the other side. Because so many times you see it become like this adversarial situation, and it's like they're sitting there, like let's say the agent on the other side's like, "There's no way my client would come down that far," and it's just like sometimes I'll be like, "Dude, like if you were like working with the buyer, like wouldn't you be like doing what I'm doing? Like, so can we have a conversation here about like we're both like trying to like get commission here, right? And like
Yeah.
do what's best for our clients. How can we like try to make both of them happy? And when you try to like kind of sort of have that line of communication with the other agent, I was like, hey, how can like my client and your client go to the closing table and be like, hey, we're pretty good with this.
That's great that you. I mean, typically, you know, we talked about some other things. I just looked at the time, but I mean, a lot of times that is a question that I have in here because the top agents understand exactly what you're talking about. If you're that adversarial agent and you're listening to this, you need to take a checkup from the neck up, right? You need to, because the goal is to sell the homes, and if the seller ends up selling it, that's they're signing off, that, and then they come to a peace in their mind that, okay, that's what it's going to be. There might be, there's a little toggle back and forth, and some of them more than others, right? Sometimes someone offers the full price because it's a great house, great community, priced just perfectly. They're going to offer the full boat price. You don't have to say much. Some people are going to offer $20,000, $30,000 less because maybe the comps aren't there, whatever. But like you said, having that relationship, every one of the top agents agree 100%. And I'm so glad you brought that up. You have to understand the goal is to get the closing. Your goal, you want to make the most amount of money, but when you have a buyer, you have a fish on the hook. You don't just start letting the line out and then throw another one over here and hope that you're going to get another one. You got somebody on the hook. You got to fight till the fight's over.
It's not even just about that.
And the fight meaning a positive fight, meaning a good, you got to go through the transaction and work it all the way through.
Well, it's not even about just getting the closing, but it's like if you get rid of that adversarial approach with the other person, and sometimes it's easier than others, man, because sometimes the other person like doesn't realize that, or they're just a pain in the butt. But if you can get past that, it's like you guys are gonna have to deal with an inspection, a repair agreement, an appraisal, maybe something else. You never know. So if you can get past that, like, and get to that point where you're like, hey, like, we're trying to figure this out together.
Yeah.
Then the reality is, they're going to also give you a little bit more information about where their buyer's actually at mentally. For example, if you're working with the seller and you've erased that adversarial relationship with the buyer's agent, the buyer's going to be like, hey, look, I think they'll, bend a little bit, but you're going to have to give them a little credit for this. I don't know, his wife's sort of freaking out about this, and you're not going to get those insights if you're being a jerk.
That's great advice.
You know what I mean?
That's huge advice. Because if you've done the business long enough, we've all had that more difficult client. And if that other agent on the understands that you have a difficult client, the wife wants to get, credit for the AC or whatever, and you just have them and they're just so entrenched, to have that agent on the other side understanding, hey, I need a little help here. But that was just that little part there. It's a great little video just to finish up there the last 2 or 3 minutes there talking about it, because that is hugely important and will make your life easier as an agent.
Cool, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.